Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Narwhal Squish, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Here you can see the finished Narwhal Squish. Kind of hard to just set him on the table and see what it is, so I have to pick him up here. He's got a cute little horn, which is optional. If you don't like narwhals and prefer whales, just leave the horn off. You can see I used 2 colors of Bernat blanket here, a white for the belly and this dusk blue for the top. But of course, you can use whatever colors you like. You'll also need some sort of safety eyes or buttons. I happen to use safety eyes for this one. Just a little bit of scrap black yarn, and of course your usual crochet supplies. In addition to the Bernat blanket, you'll need a US 7mm hook. This one is by Clover. I mentioned the safety eyes, and of course your standard crochet supplies like stitch markers, scissors, and a yarn needle. So let's go ahead and get started with our Narwhal Squish. Okay, so the one supply I forgot to mention is the stuffing. I used a 10-inch round micro bead pillow ball, and if you follow the link in the description, in addition to links to all the supplies and the written pattern, there is a link to the ball I used for the stuffing. It just gives us this really great squish and shape here. If you prefer, you can of course use fiberfill or whatever stuffing you like. You can see here it starts from the top down. We make the blue portion. Then we make the belly, and those are just whip stitched together. There's 2 little fins here and 1 tail, and it is a pretty simple amigurumi style crochet project. So let's start with the body. I do want to point out that you'll want to print out the written pattern for this project, and you can do so using the print friendly button at the bottom of the blog post. You can see here there are several important notes, and I want to point these out. Rounds 1 through 18 and the horn are all worked in a spiral. This means you don't chain 1 unless directed. Normally you might chain 1 or 2 at the beginning of a round. There's no turning chains here unless directed. And you also don't join the rounds with a slip stitch. You just keep going around and around. That's why it's so important to have that stitch marker to mark the first stitch of every round to help you keep track of your progress. So we're going to start with our color A and make a magic circle. To make a magic circle, again, I do have a separate video tutorial for this linked in the pattern, but what I'm going to do is take the end of my yarn and wrap it around my finger twice towards me, go under both loops with my hook, grab the one furthest back, pull it just under, and then I'm going to essentially make a slip stitch, but it's going to be locked down right there to the height of our circle, so I don't count it as a chain or anything like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and chain 1. We do have 1 chain 1 here at the beginning. Then make a single crochet right into the ring. Make sure you go under both of those loops to make that single crochet. And then because this yarn is so nice and thick, I can go ahead and pull my ring out and that stitch will hold it open. Now I'm going to continue with 9 half double crochets worked back into that ring. And again, I want to make sure I go through the ring itself and around that tail. That tail is what we'll be able to pull and weave in at the end to tighten up that ring nice and tight. So between the 1 single crochet and 9 half double crochets, you'll have a total of 10 stitches in this first round. So I will see you when we're finished with that and ready to begin round 2. Okay, so I've worked my 10 stitches into the ring and I'm ready to finish up round 1. What I want to do now is take that tail end and gently pull it so that this ring in the middle tightens up. I like to stabilize it with my other hand here as I pull, and just pull really gently. You don't want to accidentally break this yarn. So you can go just gently a little bit at a time until it is nice and closed. As soon as that's closed, you're done pulling, and then you can weave in that end in a couple different directions with your yarn needle when you're done. So now it's time to continue with round 2. Okay, now as I mentioned before, we're working in a spiral, amigurumi style. So we're not going to slip stitch to that first stitch, and we're not going to chain to begin this second round. Instead, we're just going to continue by half double crocheting right into that very first stitch. In fact, we're going to work 2 half double crochets in each stitch around. So in order to help us keep track, now that I've made that first stitch of round 2, I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker right in the top of that stitch. That way I won't lose track as I work around and around in a spiral, which is very easy to do if you don't have that stitch marker. So like I said, we're just going to work 2 half double crochets in each stitch around for round 2. So since we started with 10 stitches in round 1, and we're putting 2 stitches in each stitch for round 2, we'll have 20 at the end. So I will see you at the end of round 2. Okay, so then we're ready for round 3. Again, we're not going to slip stitch and we're not going to chain. We're just going to continue working on around right into that first stitch. So for round 3, we'll half double crochet in the next stitch. So when we do that, we want to make sure to move that stitch marker up to our new first stitch of the round here. There we go. And then we work 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, and that is our repeat. So we work 2 half double crochets right here in the next stitch, followed by half double crochet in the stitch after that, 2 half double crochets in the stitch after that, all the way around until the end of round 3, we will have a total of 30 half double crochets. And this is how we're going to continue making the vast majority of this body. So if we pull up the written pattern here and take a look at it together, you can see right there was round 3, half double crochet in the next stitch, 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, and then just repeat that all the way around until you have 30 half double crochets total. For round 4, we'll start with 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, then half double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So we just have, as we go up around here, we're basically working a flat circle so that at the end of round 4, we'll have 40 half double crochets. The end of round 5, we'll have 50 half double crochets. We're just increasing the number of stitches in between those increases where we work 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. So if we turn the page, we simply continue increasing all the way around. The increases will move around a little bit and change their numbers, but if you just follow the written instructions, you'll have 60 stitches, then 66, then 72 on up, all the way around until here we get to round 10. Rounds 10 through 15, if we pull up the finished squish here, you can see we've started here at the top, working our way down. Let me try that again. Rounds 10 through 15 are where we're just working even, so 1 stitch in each stitch around. Then we're going to come down here and do just a little bit of decreasing. Rounds 16, 17, 18, and 16, 17, and 18 basically. We're just decreasing a little bit till we get back down to 56 stitches. So again, same thing as when we were doing the increases. It's just instead of putting 2 stitches in 1 stitch, we'll do a half double crochet 2 together. And I do have a video tutorial for that too, if you don't know how to half double crochet 2 together. It really stays that simple, just simple half double crochets in the round until we get to round 18. That's where we're going to start working on those fins and tail. So let me pull up another swatch and we'll work on those together. All right, so here I have a small swatch. It's obviously not a full body, but it does have 56 stitches here in this round. So we're ready to make our round 19. To make our round 19, we're going to start with half double crochets in the first 10 stitches. So I'll go right into that next one. And of course, I still want to move up that stitch marker to help me keep track. There we are. So that's 1, and then we've got 9 more. Okay, so I've got my 10 half double crochets. Then I am going to make 2 double crochets in the next stitch. This is going to be beginning our first fin. So I'll go right into the next stitch. There's one, pulled that all the way through. There's a double crochet. And there is a second double crochet. Then we are going to work 3 treble crochets in the next stitch. So for a treble crochet, we yarn over twice, go into the next stitch, pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then we need to do that twice more right in that same stitch. So pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over twice, go right back into that same stitch. It's getting a little crowded, but that's okay. And pull that on up. One thing I do want to point out is if, as you're working with this yarn, if you find that, not so much in this round, but in the previous rounds, if it's cupping too much or not laying flat when you're increasing and working even, make sure you pull that loop on the hook up nice and high. It's a very textured yarn. As you can see, there's a lot of fuzziness, and that can cause that top loop to stay really tight, especially if you naturally give it a tug when you crochet. So you might want to make sure to give that a little extra tug to help these stitches lay a little better. So after we've finished those 3 treble crochets, then we're going to make 2 double crochets in the next stitch, coming back down the other side of that little fin there. And these fins themselves don't get stuffed, so I don't worry too much about the gaps in between these stitches. With the micro bead ball, all that stays contained, and this can create that really great fin shape. So after that, we are then going to, let me find my place in the pattern here, half double crochet in the next 25 stitches. So just go right onto that next stitch for the first one and make 25 half double crochets on around until we get to that tail. Okay, so I've got my 25 half double crochets, and I misspoke. We're not making the tail just yet. We've got one more fin to go. So we're going to do the same thing we did basically for the other one. 2 double crochets in the next stitch. 1 and 2. Followed by 3 treble crochets in the next stitch. There's 1 and 2 and 3. There we are. Get those worked off there. Then 2 double crochets in the next stitch. 1 and 2. And then we just have 10 more half double crochets before we start to work on that tail. So 10 more half double crochets worked over those next 10 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Get that one in there. 9. This one just wanted to be treble. And 10. There we are. Now you should have just 5 stitches left before your marked stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means we have counted correctly. So we're going to make these next 5 stitches. These are going to be the start of our tail. We're just going to single crochet in these last 5 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now we're going to make our first turn of this pattern so that we can work row 20. Row 20, we're going to go ahead and chain 1, because now we're going to be working in rows, and turn to work back basically from the inside of the body or from underneath. And we're going to work a single crochet in each of those 5 single crochets. So just 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now the whole rest of that round will remain unworked. We're just going to be working over these stitches right here. So now we're ready for row 20. Or excuse me, row 21. That was row 20. And row 21 is where we're going to be making the tail, those that great tail shape. So this part does get a little complicated. We're going to start with a chain of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to skip the chain closest to the hook right there, and we are going to start working in the next chain. And I like to work into this underneath bottom loop of the chain rather than under the top 2 loops. So skip the one closest to the hook. In the next one, make a single crochet. There we are. Followed by half double crochet in the next one. Like so. Double crochet in the next chain. There we are. And then 2 trebles in the next chain. So yarn over twice. This one can be a little hard to find, but it's right there. So 1, 2, 3, get those off there. And 1 more treble right back in that stitch, right in that same chain. Now this part, we're going to basically turn our work so that we can work back into those 5 stitches. So there'll be a little bit of a twist there, but that's okay. That's totally fine. What we're going to do next is double crochet in the next stitch of row 20. So that first one right there where our chains came out of, go ahead and put a double crochet right there. You can see it's trying to curl up on me a little bit. Don't worry about it. It'll all straighten out when we sew. So after that double crochet, then we work a half double crochet in the next stitch. Here we are. Then we work a single crochet in the next stitch. That would be the center of those 5 right there. Followed by half double crochet in the next, and a double crochet in the next. So right there you can see we've already got half our tail made. Now we're ready to make that second half. So to do that, what we're going to do is chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we skip the chain closest to the hook again, single crochet in the next, half double crochet in the next, double crochet in the next, and then we are going to actually treble crochet 2 together over the next 2 chains, because that's what mirrors what we did on the other side. On the other side we increased, but we were working in another direction. Now we're working back down this way. So we are going to yarn over twice, go into the next chain, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2 again, but stop with those 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over twice again, go into the next chain, which would be the last one now, pull that loop up, yarn over, pull through 2, let me pull up a little bit more yarn here, yarn over and pull through 2, and then when we have 3 loops left on the hook, that's where we're just going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. Then what we need to do is break our yarn. Always leave a, oops, had some fuzz on there. Always leave a bit of a long tail, not just for weaving ends. In this case, we're going to do a little bit of sewing with it, just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and pull that loop on up. Then I can get my yarn here on my yarn needle. The bigger the better with this yarn. If you've got a really nice big plastic one, those work really great for this. And then I'm just going to turn here, and you can kind of see, since we've been working into the bottom of that chain, how it really wants to just close up right there. Let's go with it. Because we've been working back and forth in rows here, is after working the amigurumi style for the rest of the body, you can see there's not as much space here on this side of the tail, and there's more space on this side. So we're going to take care of that right now too, by basically just go ahead and sew right into the bottom of that row right there. Like so. The row we're actually working on right now. We're making row 20, and then I'm sewing to the bottom of that stitch in row 20, that last double crochet we made before we started the second half of the tail, just like so. And that creates the great tail shape. So then you can take that end and just go ahead and weave it in just like you would the rest of your ends. And now, of course, we'd have a big body on top, but you can see we've made our 2 fins and our tail. So now we're ready to make the belly. Okay, so when you're making the belly, obviously you'll probably want to use a different color than you used for the body, or you can use the same color if you like too. The rounds 1 through 5 are exactly the same for the belly as they are for the body, and they are the simplest of rounds where we're just working those half double crochets in a circle, and at the end of round 5 you'll have 50 half double crochets. So let's go ahead and work round 6 together, because in round 6 we're going to be doing the fins and the tail again, but also we're going to be increasing a little bit, so it's a little bit trickier. Okay, so to begin round 6, we start with 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, and that will be our marked stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 in there, and then I will move up that stitch marker, so I always keep track and know I've done all my counting right while I'm making this round. Then I'll put a second half double crochet right in that same stitch there. There we go. Then I'm going to half double crochet in the next 8 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then I'm going to make our first fin with 2 double crochets in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3 trebles in the next stitch. So there's 1, and oops, there we go, 2, and 3. There we are. Then 2 double crochets in the next stitch. 1 and 2. Whoops. There we are. All right, so we've got our first fin made. Then I am going to half double crochet in the next 4 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2. Then half double crochet in the next 8 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, 1, 2, then half double crochet in the next 7 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2. Then we're ready for our second fin. 2 double crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2. 3 trebles in the next. Make sure you're pulling those loops up nice and high, especially when we're getting over the curve here for these trebles. They really like to be tight. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And then 2 double crochets, of course, in the next stitch. Bring our way back down here for that curve. Then half double crochet in the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. 1 and 2. Half double crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. 1, 2. And then we should just have 5 stitches left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're in the right spot. We can make our 5 single crochets to begin our tail. So there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then, of course, rows 7 and 8 for the belly are exactly the same as rows 20 and 21 of the body. We're just going to mirror those to make the second tail, which we can then sew together. The last bit that we need to crochet for our narwhal is the horn. Again, if you'd like to make a whale, you can just leave this part off. But for our narwhal, we'll definitely need one. We're going to start again, and I use the same color as the belly, white, but I'm going to use a different color here so you can see it against our background. We're going to start again with a magic circle. So I will yarn over my finger there twice. Just as before, pull that back loop up, make a little slip stitch or chain there to sort of hold it all together, and then I start following the instructions. I'm going to work 3 single crochets into the ring. And I didn't put a chain 1 at the beginning of this. You can if you want to. It's optional. I actually like skipping it for this particular piece just because of what we're doing with it and the way we want it to lie. So if you are more comfortable chaining 1 here, you can. But otherwise, you can just go right back into that ring and pull up a loop and make a single crochet without a turning chain. Now we're definitely going to want to go ahead and put a stitch marker in this stitch so that we can find it when we come back. Especially without that turning chain, it's going to be a little bit harder to see exactly where the top of that stitch is. So there is our first one, and now we need 2 more single crochets right into that ring. We're only going to be making 3 in this first round. So there's 2 and 3. So we're already ready to go ahead and gently start pulling on that tail end there and tighten it right on up. Then we're ready for round 2. For round 2, we're going to work all our stitches in the back loop only. So if we look at, let's actually look at one of the other ones here. It's a little easier to see. There are 2 loops there at the top of a stitch, that V that you're used to looking at the top of your stitches. The front loop is always the one that's closest to you, the crocheter, and the back loop is always the one that's furthest away. It's always relative to you. So if I turn my work, they switch too. It's always front loop is closest to you, back loop is furthest away. So what we're going to do is work a series of back loop only stitches. We're going to work 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the stitch after that, and 2 single crochets in the next stitch, the last one, all through that back loop only. So I'm going to go ahead and just sort of pull our stitch marker to the side here a little bit of that first stitch, and then I want to just stick my hook right under just that back loop, right down the middle of the stitch. It can be a little tight, and that's okay. We actually want our stitches to be a little tight here because we are basically making a very large scale amigurumi. So you go under just that back loop, then you can yarn over and make that first single crochet for this round. So I'm going to go ahead now and move that stitch marker up again right into the top of that stitch so I can keep track. And we do want to start pushing so that the point of this comes towards us. We're working around the outside of the horn. Don't worry too much about this tail. We're actually going to use it as stuffing. So you can go ahead and start turning your work right side out right away. So we've got our first single crochet made for round 2. Let me tighten that back up on my hook there. So I'm just going to go right under that same back loop only for a second one. Takes a little bit of time, but not too many stitches, so it's not so bad. There's our second one. Come to the next stitch, find that back loop only. Just put 1 single crochet in that one. And then we find that last one all the way over here. And we're going to put 2 single crochets in that last one so that at the end of round 2, we'll have 5 single crochets made. Remember though, all those stitches were made in the back loop only. And here we can really start pushing it right side out. You can see our little horn starting to form here. So then we're ready for round 3 of our horn. And once again, we're going to work all our stitches in the back loop only. We are going to single crochet just once in the next stitch. So I'll make that stitch and then pull up that stitch marker again right there. Then I'm going to work 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So just again, back loop only. Oops. Gets a little wobbly and wiggly here at this point, working a small piece with big stitches, but it goes pretty darn quick for that reason too. So there's 2 in that next one. 1 single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. 2 single crochets in the back loop only of the next one. You can see it's starting to get a little bit easier now that it's getting a little bigger and we've got something to hold on to. And then finally a single crochet in the very last stitch. So, whoops, did I get just the back loop there? There we go. All right. So at the end of round 3, you should have a total of 7 single crochets. And you can see by working in the back loop only, we're kind of getting that sort of stripy look that you would see on a unicorn horn or a narwhal horn, unicorn of the sea, of course. So we're ready for round 4. So once again, working all stitches in the back loop only, we're going to work 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So, oops, my back loop didn't want to split apart there. So there's 1. We'll go ahead and move up that stitch marker. There we go. There's our second one. Then single crochet once in the next stitch. Then 2 single crochet in the next. 1, 2. 1 single crochet in the next. 2 single crochet in the next. 1, 2. There we go. 1 single crochet in the next, and then we should have 1 stitch lonely here at the end. Yep. So just 1 single crochet right in there. And that would be a 10 total single crochets made for round 4. And we are going to be able to finish off. So we are ready to finish our horn. We're going to back loop only slip stitch in the next stitch. So that's our marked stitch. I'm going to go ahead and take the stitch marker out since we are finishing up here. Go under that back loop only and just make a slip stitch. So we pull that one right on through. Then we're going to break our yarn, and you want to make sure to leave a nice long tail, about 12 inches, a little bit longer if desired, however much yarn you've got laying around. We're going to go ahead and leave that because we're going to pull that end up then, and then we can use that tail, this long tail we just cut, to sew it onto our narwhal. So we've got our original end here that we originally cut, and this yarn has so much texture that, you know, it's not going to go anywhere. It's nice and tight in the magic ring. At this point, if you really wanted to, you could try and sort of turn it wrong side out and weave that end in a little bit. But you don't want to cut that off short because you're going to go ahead and use that to stuff it right on in there. And that will be just that little bit of extra stuffing that our horn needs to hold it nice and squishy onto our narwhal. So then you can just use this tail end and your yarn needle to sew it on. Okay, so you need to do some assembly on your narwhal before you stuff him and actually sew the belly to the body. So the first thing you probably want to do is go ahead and sew on the horn. And in the instructions, I say to add it to round 9 of the body. So if we start at the top counting down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you can see it's a little bit bigger than just one round, but that just gives you some guidance about where to place it. And of course, if you want to put it lower or higher, that's totally up to you. It should be located opposite the tail. So look for the tail and just go to the other side. Then you can sew on the horn. Then you can go ahead and add the eyes and the mouth with a little bit of black scrap yarn. You can use buttons for these, or the safety eyes I used 22mm safety eyes. But again, this is where you can do a lot of personalization as you add all of these little bits. So if you prefer to add the eyes first and work from there, however works from you, just make sure you add those things before you do end up sewing it together. Once you've got all the facial features added on, then you'll go ahead and insert the pillow. Unfortunately, I just have the one that's inside here right now. Go ahead and insert the pillow ball inside the body. It should be a relatively tight fit. You can kind of squish it down in there a little bit, hold it open. It's yarn, so you can push it on in. And then you just lay the belly portion right on over. Make sure your tail bits are matched up and your fins are matched up. And I simply whip stitched them together using the body color. So a whip stitch, I do have a separate tutorial for that on YouTube and linked at the link here in the description, but you basically just sew basically a whip motion. The simplest form of sewing there is. I really preferred the look that I got with this rather than a crocheted seam. The crocheted seam added a bit of bulk, and of course on a narwhal that's not what you'd have. You'd have that really nice smooth transition, or at least I think so. I've never been able to get that close to one. So basically, that is it, though. Then you've got your Narwhal Squish. And that's how to crochet the Narwhal Squish. It's a free pattern on mooglyblog.com. You can go to the link in the description, or just Google Moogly blog Narwhal Squish. It's a lot of fun to make with Yarnspiration's Bernat blanket, and it really is some of the quickest amigurumi you can make with this yarn. I do recommend using a 7mm hook, a little bit smaller than you might normally use with this yarn, but you do want your stitches to be nice and tight. So, for all the links to the other tutorials I've talked about here today, the written pattern, and of course the ball that I used for stuffing and the other supplies, please do go to the link in the description. Please do check out Yarnspiration's Bernat blanket. It's a great yarn available all over the place, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day, everybody.